What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the different file types you can use on your website and what to use them for, what not to use them for, and all that fun stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So, first thing we're going to talk about is overall best practices. So, to keep your website loading quickly, running smoothly, we want to keep anything that we upload to the site under 500 kilobytes. So, whether it's photos, graphics, logos, documents, any of that sort of stuff, we want to keep it under 500 kilobytes. That'll just make sure that we don't bog down the site over time as we get more and more images uploaded. Next thing is to use the correct file type, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. So different types of images need different file types, and we'll talk about that. Using the proper dimensions is also really important. So we don't need to be uploading stuff to our website that's 4,000 pixels wide. That's just not necessary for a screen. So just making sure to size things. I usually do 2,000 pixels or less in either direction, depending on if it's portrait or landscape. That's just kind of a good rule of thumb to follow, I think. Compress with care, which means compressing images to keep them under 500 kilobytes, but also making sure that they still look nice and clean and they don't get all pixely and fuzzy after you compress them. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. There's a couple different ways we can do that with Photoshop if you have access to that, or even online image compressors. And lastly, and always most importantly, less is more. So the less crap we upload to our website, the better our website's going to perform over time and not get bogged down with a bunch of images or files that we're not really even using. So just keep that in mind when you upload stuff to your site. Moving on to our file types. So the first one we're going to talk about is WEBP, which this may be a little foreign to you depending on how well versed you are in website best practices, but WebP is a file type that was created by Google that is made for website use. So you can use a WebP for whatever you would traditionally use for a JPEG, PNG, or GIF. So a photo, a transparent graphic, an animation, any of that stuff can actually be saved as a WebP now, and it will give you the smallest possible file type, which is nice. So it'll keep the image looking nice, but keep it at a very small file size, which is what we want for website use. So what we always want to be thinking about is the smaller the better in terms of the file size, because I mean, nowadays everyone has good internet for the most part, but if somebody's loading something on their mobile phone, you never know how good of service they may or may not have. So that's just going to cause things to lag even more on a mobile device. And with the attention span that all of us have these days, which is basically zilch, it's important to keep that load time for your website as fast as possible so people don't get frustrated and move on to something else. So that's my spiel. Moving on, always use WebP if you can. So just plan to use WebP. We're going to talk about some other file types you can use if you can't for some reason use WebP, but pretend that you have to. One of those being JPEG, so you're probably familiar with this. Typically, this is something that we use for a photo, so something that has been actually taken by a camera, a photograph, not just a graphic or other image that was created on a computer. So we only ever want to use a JPEG for photos, nothing else. That's what it's built for, and that's the easiest way to compress an image as a JPEG is if it's a photo. But like I said, use WebP if you can instead, because that'll get that file size even smaller. Next one is a PNG. So these are typically used for a graphic that has a transparent background. So you can think of maybe a logo or an overlapping element on a website that you want to have the transparent background so that you can see whatever is behind it. So typically we use PNG for those, and not for photos, not for vector graphics, not for anything else except for things that need to be transparent. And again, use WebP. The only exception to not using WebP, in my opinion, is an SVG file. So if you're not familiar with what a vector graphic is, there's a little explanation here, which is it's an image that is created based on a mathematical formula and points instead of just a traditional like flattened image, if that makes sense. So a vector file is pretty much the best, crispiest, nicest type of file that you can get. And this is what you'd be using for things like logos or icons, not just on your website, but anywhere, you know, having a vector of your logo, or if you have like branded icons and things like that, you always want to have those vectorized. That way you can scale them to any size and use them on any type of material, online, printed, huge as a billboard, tiny as a logo on your website, all of the different options. So vector files are the best, and you'll always want to use SVG for things like logos and icons, and that will make sure that they're like nice and crispy, and we can resize them, we can even recolor them, we can do all kinds of stuff that we need to do on the website with those. So very important. WebPs and SVGs are the way to go. Lastly, PDF. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with a PDF. It's a document file that you can use for lots of different things. If you need to have somebody download something from your website that they need to sign, or download an invoice, or download a presentation, a slide deck, a worksheet, any of that kind of stuff, you're going to want to use a PDF file for. PDF is similar to SVG as well, where it does have that vectorized element to it. So if you have vectorized graphics in the PDF, they will keep that quality. And obviously they can have multiple pages, unlike a GIF, or not a GIF, sorry, a PNG, JPEG, WebP is just one single image. A PDF can have as many pages as you want it to have, but again, keeping in mind 500 kilobytes or less if you're uploading it to the website. And final thing we're going to talk about today is what not to use. So these are the 3 file types among many others, but these are the most common ones I think that you may be inclined to use on your website, and you probably shouldn't. So the first one is a GIF, which we talked about earlier. We'll just save those as WebPs instead of GIFs, and that'll keep it a higher quality file with a smaller file size. Other ones are video files. So some of the most common ones are MP4 and MOV. There's tons of other ones that you may be using. Don't ever upload those to your website, because that is going to be a massive file, like probably, I don't know, 20 plus megabytes depending on the size of the video, and we definitely don't want that to be bogging down your site, and it's going to be kind of impossible to load that big of a file on some cellular devices and things. So what we want to do is actually move those video files over, upload them to either YouTube or Vimeo, and that way we can just embed the video on the site from either of those platforms. And what that does is it relies on YouTube or Vimeo's really nice fast loading video servers to pull up that video and load it, rather than us relying on our website host to show that video. So just to recap what we talked about, we're going to use WebPs for pretty much everything that we can, SVGs for anything that is vectorized, and then we're going to offload our videos onto either YouTube or Vimeo and embed them from there. So that way our site will be nice and quick, loading fast, not having any lagging or issues, and we can maintain that over time by not uploading a ton of stuff to our website. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and comment if you have a question or have any feedback. And I will put the link in the description below to the slides that I use too, if you want to save those for later. See you guys next time.